Happy Valentine's week. So nice to have all of you back. Things are a little different today. Sarah couldn't make it, so we have our dear friend, our editor, and fellow podcaster, Nicole Smith. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, y'all. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on and pinch hitting because it's getting
You're very welcome.
Because it's getting close and things are getting heated. We are doing season 2, episodes 7 and 8, Heart and Home, and Coming Together, Coming Apart. Not the best, most encouraging titles, shall we say?
Nope, not at all.
Because right now, Elizabeth's heart is at home in Hamilton. Let's talk about Tom and Julie to just drive things out of the gate, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yeah.
So last episode, we didn't mention this, but Tom and Julie stole the car.
Yeah.
And Julie is the one who talked him into it.
Yep.
I have so many things to say on that, but I'll keep them to myself. We love you, Charlotte.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so they take the car out. He's driving, Tom is driving, and he's doing a pretty fair job of it. And he is amazed at how well the car handles. And then she figuratively puts a spoke in the wheel and says, "Let me drive." Worst idea. And he even says, "I can't believe I'm about to agree to this." Exactly.
Without a license at that.
Without a license, muddy roads, never driven before, in your father's car, which you have said is his pride and joy after his daughter's. What on earth was she thinking?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. So things have finally gotten back to normal in Hope Valley. We'll go into that in a second, but Elizabeth gets a telegram and Jack gets a telegram.
Yep.
Viola sends it to Elizabeth. The Mounties send it to Jack. Tom and Julie were in an automobile accident. Oh my gosh. And you got to give him points for chivalry and gallantry. He takes the blame, which he shouldn't have. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, dear?
On Jack finding out about
Jack finding out, Tom, Julie, the whole shebang.
I agree with you. I like that he was very chivalrous about it. He took the blame, even though it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, but do you think it was the right path to take? I say no, but that's me personally.
Yeah.
I could not believe that, because exactly what Jack says to Tom, he's going to forgive her. Yeah. You know, I mean, he's on the verge of throwing Tom in jail. Yeah. He's going to forgive Julie, and everyone is blaming Tom, saying, "I can't forgive him. He was reckless." Everyone is, and he's saying, "No big deal. They'll all like me in the end. Everyone likes me."
I know. Yeah.
What did you say?
I said, "Please be serious, Tom." Then I wrote in parentheses, "He is not helping himself," which is basically what Jack said. He was like, "You're not helping yourself right now.
You are not doing yourself any favors." And I love when Jack is inspecting the car. I can't believe that William Thatcher let him do it. I don't know why William Thatcher let him do it, except that he knows that Jack is a good and decent person, and he's trying to find the truth, not save his brother's hide. So, but when William Thatcher says the fault lies squarely with the driver, he didn't say Tom, he says the driver, and Jack says, totally under his breath, not disputing that. I mean, good for Jack for not taking things at face value, and for going through the routine, for doing all due diligence, no matter what anybody was saying, including Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So Julie is trying to run away. Rich girls do not know how to run away.
No, I think Elizabeth even said something. This was in the second episode, I believe, or maybe the end of the first one. So episode 7.
It's in Coming Together, Coming Apart. You're right.
Yeah. She said something about next time you try to sneak out, don't call your driver.
The chauffeur.
The chauffeur, yeah.
Yeah. I wrote it down because I was like, oh, you're brilliant. Next time you run away, don't use the chauffeur to set it up.
Yeah, don't use the chauffeur to set it up.
Because she's just baffled. How did you know? Let's think about this, sweetie. Now,
pretty easy to figure out.
I know. It's so easy to figure out. This is where Tom starts using an ounce of his brain.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, he's not using his brain this entire he starts showing that he's thinking things through. Because he's the one who says, are you sure you want to go through with this? And she says, oh, of course. And he is actually thinking. He says, I just don't know how I'm going to support you. And she throws that away. We have my trust fund. Once again, he's thinking, if your father doesn't cut you off, because he knows she's never had to worry about money a day in her life. And the idea of being disowned or cut off is completely foreign to her. That just what Elizabeth says to her in the end. You need to find your purpose beyond shopping sprees and chasing men. And she's not.
I agree with her.
She's not thinking. She's not using her brain beyond a shopping spree with her trust fund, because who knows what she would have spent that money on once they were clear of Hamilton.
Goodness.
Chasing men, chasing after Tom. So he says, if your father doesn't cut you off, because he's thinking ahead. And she said, well, we'll have each other. I'm like, oh, darn.
Oh, goodness. I didn't write down any dialogue, but I loved everything that Tom said to Julie, like before they went their separate ways, like before Tom actually left. This was in episode 8.
I was just going there. So this is after he's had a talking to with Jack, after he's realized that he has not dealt with his father's death, and that's why he is acting like he is perpetually 13 years old. And he is finally coming to grips with the fact that he lost his father at a young age. He is coming to grips with the fact that he has not dealt with it. And then he hears those very encouraging words from the best big brother in the world, that Dad preferred him. Jack took after their mother, but he was his boy. Tom Tom was his boy, and he was bragging to all his buddies about how smart he was. And something that Jack says that I thought was so profound is it would break his heart for him to see his death being the cause of you getting into so much trouble.
Yeah.
And finally,
I'm getting teary-eyed right
now. I know, me too.
I was crying watching it last night.
I know. When Tom finally says, "I'm sorry, Jack," I just it's
and when he gave him the pocket watch.
Oh
my gosh.
I mean, that's one of the only things that Jack probably has of his father. And with the feeling that he was never good enough for him and that he followed in his footsteps to feel close to him, I guess he thought that being a Mountie was enough of him to have, because he gave the pocket watch to Tom, which is so sweet. And then, yes, Tom and Julie have their secret rendezvous, except Elizabeth's 5 feet away.
Yeah.
But it's better for both of us. He says it. He sounds so mature. I mean, you compare this conversation to Julie in her room saying, "Oh, wither." 10 minutes later, she's eating all of the cakes or petit fours, if you will, from the stand. And she said, "Well, it won't do me any good to wither. You said you were gonna," whatever,
That first line, I think she said, "I'll wither up and die."
Yeah.
And then Elizabeth, I think, said something
"You won't die.
You won't die." Yeah.
Then I'll wither. Oh gosh. And that's when she slaps her and says, "Thatchers do not wither." Oh gosh. So Tom says, "It's better for both of us. You deserve someone who's not going to run away from trouble." And he says, "You deserve someone who will make you happy." She's still whining. She's calmed down a little bit, but she's still whining, saying, "You make me happy." And then he comes back. I'm telling you, Jack rubbed off on him. Then, I can't quote it verbatim, "Then let me be the person that I know I can become for you." I'm just like, yes, Tom. Yeah. Thank you.
He's growing up. Way to go, Tom.
Someone's growing up. Okay. Whew. Whew. I got a little heated with that. So the season is almost over, and we have another fresh new character appearing for the first time. It's just wow.
Yep.
We see Nurse Faith Carter.
Yes.
And I'm just so reminded of how enchanted I was with her the first time I saw it. I like watching it this time around, and the other times when I've rewatched the whole series in the past, I liked watching it this time around because right then, as the episode is happening, I'm like, oh no, competition.
I know.
So we just got done with Rosemary. No more competition. But I mean, that's what she is meant to look like now. Knowing that we have nothing to worry about in these episodes, I was able to watch it and just be delighted and enchanted with her. And she was fumbling. You can tell that she's flustered, and she knows that she's in the presence of a handsome man, because even though Tom has said that Elizabeth and Jack have a thing, he says a relationship with Princess Elizabeth, and she still gets flustered with her words. And Jack is also trying to downplay it. We both live in Hope Valley. Okay, Nicole, what is your opinion? Why do you think Jack downplays it? Is it just to keep the privacy? Is it to keep it from becoming a spectacle in Hamilton, which could happen faster than social media nowadays? Maybe not faster, but just as fast, with how gossip travels through a big city like that. And they are such a prominent people in that big city. But, they're coming from Hope Valley where things have been okay. What's your opinion? Why do you think Jack downplayed their relationship? Because first time I saw it, it made me mad. I was like, why are you downplaying it?
Yeah, it kind of annoyed me just a little bit too. I feel like it's possibly a little bit of both.
Okay, what do you think? Go for it.
I think one reason, I think one, he's trying to downplay it maybe because he's still unsure of where Elizabeth's heart is because of everything with Charles. And two, he's just trying to be, chivalrous. He doesn't want to, kind of, as they say, jump the gun on their relationship. And then three, what you said about things spreading fast and, them being a very prominent family in Hamilton.
Yeah, it just, I remember how angry I was, but, watching with a more objective eye, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In Sarah's absence, I promised that I would defend Charles. So let's talk about Charles for a minute. We got to go from his perspective because all he sees is this newcomer coming in, stepping on his territory, and now this newcomer's brother has gotten the girl who's like a sister to him in an accident. So you gotta look at things from his perspective. He's upset, but he's still holding back. He's still not taking it all out on Jack, which is very, very good of him. He came and picked them up from the station. Can you imagine how awkward that was? Oh my gosh, that car ride from the station to Elizabeth's house.
That must have been really awkward.
Oh my gosh, you got Elizabeth and Jack. I don't know if Elizabeth sat in the front seat with Charles or sat in the back seat. I don't know how, because when they show it, they're already out. I mean, just, you got Charles driving, Jack in the back seat, and Elizabeth somewhere. Whoa. Tensions are high. Awkward. So, but he did it. He went to the station and picked them up, which, bless his heart. And
that was very sweet.
Yeah, it was very, very sweet. And then he offers Jack a ride to the infirmary, which he did not have to do that. It does go to show that Charles is a very, very good man. He's just not our choice, right?
Yes, he's not the right man for Elizabeth.
He's not the right man for Elizabeth, but he's a good man.
Yes. And
so, yeah. And for a lot of other insight on Charles, see our Marcus Rosner interview. But that shot of Jack and Elizabeth hugging, and I
love that shot.
Oh my gosh. And right after, he kind of gives her that smile, kind of, hey, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And then she hugs him, and Charles is very uncomfortable. And then, you have the parting faces, which are kind of brushing up against each other, and you have the way Jack is looking at her, because the camera's not on Elizabeth, it's on Jack's face. And so you kind of see how her nearness is affecting him. I'm just like, oh gosh, that poor man standing in the background.
Oh goodness.
Who is also in love with Elizabeth. This is dicey.
There was one scene that interchange or the exchange between Jack and Charles after Elizabeth walks away.
Yeah.
I like it, but at the same time, I don't like it because I don't really like what Charles said. I think he said something along the lines of, I can't remember what it was.
So Charles says, I just want what's best for the Thatcher girls, for Julie and Elizabeth. And Jack counters, do you know what's best for Elizabeth? And then Charles immediately comes in with, do you? I'm like, whoa. things are starting to get heated, and we are no longer in neutral corners here anymore.
No.
But I mean, they both did their own version of putting the fire out.
Yeah.
Jack kind of told him, he kind of gave it to him a little bit when he says, I know her well enough to let her decide for herself. And Charles says, with all due respect, you don't know her at all.
But yes, that was the line. Yeah.
Which I don't quite know how to take that.
I don't either.
Is Charles trying to say, you don't know her well enough to know that she can't make up her own mind? Because in the next episode, when you have Charles and Elizabeth at the piano together again, and this is coming down. Sorry, Sarah. This is coming down from the conversation that kind of funny that was also at the piano, but Viola and Elizabeth are talking, and Viola gives Elizabeth the what for. I mean, okay, I just have to say very quickly, when she says, everybody's asking, do you and Jack have an understanding? And Elizabeth looks at her completely ignorantly and says, understanding about what? Really? You haven't been in the backwoods that long.
Oh my goodness.
You're a teacher, for crying out loud. Words are supposed to be your specialty. You're coming from high society. How many times have you heard that term? I don't know what was going on with Elizabeth right there, but so Viola spells it out and says, has he made you a proposal in marriage? That's none of your affair. Oh, so he hasn't. But then she says something, Viola says something that I really think that Elizabeth needed to hear. She said, and what about Charles? Or will you continue leading him on? I'm not leading Charles. Yes, you are. So she's coming off of that conversation, and she says, Charles, you know how I adore you, but I can't continue this any longer. And Charles has a very, especially given what he says to Jack, Charles has a very interesting response. He says, I can't remember the line exactly, but he says, as someone who may think of you as more than a friend, I need to make the decision of when the time is to stop. I'm like, she just told you to stop. So now we're getting to Charles not taking no for an answer, and Sarah's not here to dispute it. She's gonna kill me when she sees this. I love you, Sarah.
We love you, Sarah.
But yeah, he is getting to this point where he is not taking no for an answer. And that's
a problem.
Yes.
I did write in my notes. Thank you, Elizabeth, for speaking up and being honest.
Yeah, it's about dang time. Let's talk about the family for a minute. We've mentioned them here and there, but let's talk about the family for a minute, because the family is Elizabeth's biggest obstacle besides Charles. And I would probably have to say that Viola is the biggest obstacle.
Viola and William.
Yeah, but I will give William this. He's a dad.
Yeah.
You know, Viola's just being a snobby older sister, in my opinion. But William's being a dad. He's being a father. Yeah. And he's getting protective because he doesn't see this. It's poor timing. All the wrong things are happening all at once.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because he says to Jack, what does he say? He says, your help in this matter is quite appreciated.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm prepared to offer you a position in my company. And we know from the very end that, because Elizabeth says, that means he really likes you. Problem is, to Jack, that's trying to change who he is.
Yeah. When William said something about, being accepted in society, I was like, what? How is being a Mountie not acceptable in society? I mean, you're protecting the, citizens of wherever you're serving. So how is that not acceptable?
I think it's, okay, here's one theory. Jack's a Mountie now. And when he's looking at the car, William says the association between the Thorntons and the Thatchers is not a happy one, or has not been a happy one. And Jack says, you're asking me to stop seeing Elizabeth? His answer, no, I'm asking you to make a decision that would show how much you care about her. Translation, stop seeing her.
Yeah, translation, that's basically saying stop seeing her.
Let's say the same thing in two different ways. But what I'm thinking is, right now in his current state, he's a Mountie, and so there's nothing wrong with him associating with his brother. But if he was in high society, it would kind of leave his brother behind, because William doesn't necessarily have any problems with Jack. The first time watching it, I thought he did. But going back and watching it with a more critical eye, he doesn't really have a problem with him. It's just the circumstances.
Yeah.
And so this was William's way of getting him out of those circumstances that he didn't like. Jack took it as, I'm not good enough. But I don't think that's what William was trying to do. To be completely fair to him, I think he was trying to get him out of the circumstances that made the situation hard and made the situation undesirable for him, and say, if I put him in this situation, I will have absolutely no problem with him, and he can marry my daughter. So each person did what they thought was right. There was just an intention misinterpretation.
Yeah, you have a good point.
Well, thank you. But let's go back to Viola. Because I see her as the real obstacle. And even Sarah says that she is the Hamilton character that she will defend the least. So
same.
Yeah. I mean, first she just goes out of the gate and says that Elizabeth and Julie are fraternizing with the wrong kind of people. Elizabeth does get a little defensive. Did you see that very pouty little girl being reprimanded look on her face?
Yeah, I did.
I was like, I have never seen that look on Elizabeth before if it wasn't joking. But he was totally sincere. Oh my gosh. And then, Viola, now granted, the scene at the piano, that was a good thing. Mm-hmm. That needed to happen. All of that needed to be said. She's doing it with the wrong intentions, but it needed to be said. And then I will absolutely never forgive her for stirring the pot. She happens to see Jack at this cafe/restaurant with Faith. And then she goes and tattles to Elizabeth.
I write in my notes, is she trying to cause conflict between Jack and Elizabeth? Like, yes. Really?
The answer is yes, she is, because she does not approve of this match in any way, shape, or form.
Well, of course,
the way her father could be persuaded to do. See, William's trying to find a way. Yeah, William's trying to find a way to approve. Viola is just shutting the gate. Nope. Gate closed, drawbridge. No. So she says, apparently he's struck up a friendship with Tom's nurse. And because Elizabeth is already feeling insecure and she's already feeling a jumble of emotions and a jumble of things being told to her, she takes it in the worst possible way. And did you see that smug look on Viola's face when they were in the restaurant?
I was actually just about to mention that. Yes.
Great minds. She looked like she had caught Jack with his hand in the cookie jar. And she was about to go tattle to the governess whose glasses she stole.
I was just about to say that. No, not Viola. Lionel's face, on the other hand, he was just like, he was very friendly, he didn't really care.
He was trying to carry on a civil conversation.
Yeah.
Bless the man.
I like Lionel. Yeah. I hope we can see him again. I hope they'll bring him back, but who knows?
Who knows? But yeah, he's actually being a gentleman in society. He's not being the nitpicking cat the way some excuse me. Okay, so these last two scenes with Jack and Elizabeth, when they're at dinner, I wanted to cry.
I did too. The first time I watched this, I wanted to cry.
I just wanted to cry. Okay, number one, he signals to the waiter. Did he have to pay for that incredible, you know the prices are sky high?
I don't know.
I was like, oh my gosh, please tell me that this dinner is on Dad. Because they didn't go to a little restaurant the way they have in the past, or obviously Abigail's, but they were at the club.
I don't know. I'm thinking that he did have to pay,
which is awful.
Yeah, at the same time, I can see why he would want to pay, because that would be the gentlemanly thing to do for a guy.
of course he would want to do the chivalrous thing, but
yeah, chivalrous, yeah.
But, and it's very gallant, but she's in one of her fancy dresses. He's in his nicest suit. They're obviously, at least it looked like they were in the club where Viola, Lionel, Charles, and Elizabeth went. That's where it looks like they are.
Yeah.
Which is not cheap. Now, the only thing I could think of, I don't know how much they did this kind of thing. I'm not up on 1910 finances, but the only thing that I could think of is the Thatchers, being Hamilton royalty. They are very well known at that club. And, you know, her father's probably a member. And so they recognize Elizabeth, seat her immediately, and maybe it goes on to the family account.
It could, yeah, that's possible.
It could. That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, that's just shameful.
That would be a lot of money.
That would be a whole lot of money for a Mountie to plunk down. This is where I get so frustrated. I once wrote a blog about Charles and Rosemary and their perspectives and how they, I think you read it, and how,
yeah, I think I did, yeah.
how they felt. But at the end of it, I talked about this kind of thing right here, because in this season, what is missing between Jack and Elizabeth is one word: understanding. And right now, Elizabeth is refusing to understand the situation. Now, Jack was not understanding the situation in Hope Valley when she kissed Charles goodbye, because it was on the cheek, it was quick, it was light, there was nothing there, especially when you look at the hug at the car between Jack and Elizabeth. You know, there's more in that hug than there was in the kiss between Charles and Elizabeth. But Rosemary kissed him. Rosemary kissed Jack on the cheek when she thought she was leaving for San Francisco. So, you know, so Jack got way too upset about that kiss on the cheek, in my opinion. Now it's Elizabeth's turn. She sets a trap, and the poor man, just because he's not trying to hide anything, he walks right into it by no fault of his own. But I mean, he says, you spend time with Charles. Why shouldn't I have dinner with someone who's trying to help my brother? And he even says, she was alone, I was alone, we happened to meet. And then once again, Elizabeth gets into what I call princess mode, and she gets so defensive.
Oh my gosh.
Charles is the
friend.
And she gets angry. I mean, she's holding herself together, but she gets so angry. Charles is a friend. And bless his heart, Jack has the answer right there. A friend who would ask for your hand the very second I was out of the picture.
I was out of the picture.
But I never questioned your intentions. And he had every reason to question her intentions, may I add. That's my opinion. He had every reason to question her intentions with the way that she has been with Charles. And he never did.
Nope.
And he's right. And the one thing that line says to me is that there is still something there's some semblance of a relationship between Jack and Elizabeth at this point, because you think that this is a breakup, but he says a friend who would ask for your hand the very second I was out of the picture. So at least he still looks at himself as her beau. He still looks at them as courting. And then when she says, Jack, what's happening? And he says, I'm not sure. You just no. It's heart-wrenching. And then at the train station, Elizabeth has to, first she says there's no way Julie could do any of this stuff. And then when she's alone with Julie and Julie says, do you think I could do something so reckless? Elizabeth immediately answers, yes. So obviously Elizabeth knows that it's in her character to do something this reckless. And then she reverts right back to, well, you have to admit, trouble seems to follow Tom. So we go right back to putting all the blame on Tom when it was Julie driving the car and Elizabeth knows it. She knows it and she's acknowledged it.
Makes me want to pull my hair out.
It does. It makes you want to pull your hair out.
Get it together, Elizabeth.
That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you want to tear your hair out, but good on them because that's what it did. And then, Jack, at the very end of that episode, he puts the distance between them so that they're miles apart and they're standing a foot apart. My seat's in coach. And she says, I have a first-class compartment. You should ride with me. And he says, thanks, but I've got some thinking to do. Oh, man.
Oh.
Okay, let's go to Hope Valley.
Yes, where everything's happy.
Well, except for Bill and Nora and
Bill.
Abigail.
Yeah, except for Bill and Abigail.
All right, let's go there very quickly. So we find out that Bill wasn't completely lying, which is good and bad. Because we don't exactly know where to side with him at this point yet. We don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. And, Abigail says, you told me your wife died. He said, I didn't tell you that she died. I told you I lost her. And Abigail comes back with, it was, what does she say? It was a deception.
Yeah.
Which is true. I'm having a hard time being totally okay with this situation. Bill said he had every reason to believe that the divorce was final when he came back to Hope Valley. But when he was there and when he kissed her goodbye, he knew that the divorce probably wasn't completely final by then.
Yeah.
So I'm having a hard time with this part. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't stand Nora.
I feel the same.
Oh gosh.
And I think that is, I believe that Jack Wagner used to be married to her.
Yeah. That's her name is
Wagner.
Christina Wagner. They used to be married, and they weren't married at the time that they did this. They were divorced, but they were very good friends. And apparently they had incredible chemistry on a soap opera. And that's why they brought them back together. we don't see her do all these terrible things to Bill, but we hear him say to her, you did this. And she doesn't deny it. She just says, I did what I had to do. I mean, frankly, that gives no wonder he's attracted to Abigail. You have somebody who, when you put them side by side, Abigail has lost just as much as Nora. Abigail lost her son. Abigail lost her husband. And Nora lost her son and then pushed her husband away. So she lost her husband.
Yeah.
And you see these two women who have this basically the same situation, handling it in two very different ways. Of course he's attracted to her. It just would have been a lot better if he had been straight up with her.
Yeah.
And saved all of, I can have sympathy for Bill. He didn't want to get into all of that with a budding relationship, and they were still trying to get to know each other, but
honesty is the best policy.
Mm-hmm. And it never is a good thing when you don't have it. Okay, so we'll get more into them as time goes on.
Yes.
All right. So I just want to talk about Hope Valley as a whole really quick. We see Elizabeth with the kids.
I love those scenes so much. That first one, when she's in the schoolhouse and she's teaching them about the mercury and the thermometer, and then Jack walks in, and what was the line? I haven't written.
I think I can help with that.
Yeah, I think I can help with that.
That totally, did that remind you of the movie Holes?
I have not seen that in such a long time. So
Damn, I can fix that.
Yeah. Elizabeth says, do you know how to fix the stove? And then Jack says, well, I may not be an expert, but I think I can manage. And then Albert says, Mounties can do anything.
Give that young man an A.
Give that young man an A.
And then Elizabeth tries.
Or she is talking about Jack and Charles.
She tries to just go back to the lesson. Are you going to marry Constable Thornton? Little Emily. She gets very, very flustered. Finally, she thinks she has the situation handled. Unless you would like extra homework, I suggest you all focus on your propositions.
But I mean, prepositions.
Even Jack laughed. He turns back to the stove and he's snickering. And then we hear, when Elizabeth and Abigail are together, we hear that Rachel says, thank you for keeping Miss Thatcher nice
warm. And then I think Abigail says, what was it?
I know what you're trying to say. I've got it right here. Elizabeth says, I can't imagine Charles repairing a stove.
Yeah.
And Abigail says, can you imagine him keeping you nice and warm?
Yes, that was the line.
I mean, you gotta think about these things when choosing a husband.
And then Elizabeth's like, Abigail?
Abigail?
I missed their conversation so much.
So much. Okay. So now we have Rosemary, Lee, and Gowan. Let's talk about the two without the other this time.
Nope. I love those scenes too.
Oh my gosh. So Lee is being presented with a special business tax assessment by Gowan. The way you've rigged these rates, you're going to break me. That is the idea, of course, though, isn't it? Oh gosh. this season 1 and season 2 Gowan can't stand him. Yeah.
Oh, he's trying to take everything away from Lee. Why? Lee didn't do anything to him.
I know. He didn't do anything to him. He saved the town so that Gowan could become the mayor of it. You know,
he should be thanking him, not trying to put him out of business.
I know. And, you know, Rosemary talks to Lee, but he's not the jovial person that he usually is. He says, we're going to have to cut jobs. I can't be held to all of my promises. And so Rosemary kind of takes matters into her own hands and starts doing what actors love to do, people watching. These scenes are so beautiful.
Yes.
These scenes are so classic. First, Rosemary tells Lee that Gowan is cheating. And I love how Lee goes, he's cheating? And she points it out and, well, I'll be.
Yeah.
And then they hatch a plan.
Mm-hmm. The way Rosemary fake cried, she's like, brilliant.
And you know, and she gets right in there, like, Mayor Gowan, I beg you, please do not take advantage of Lee's desperation. And Rosemary, will you stay out of this? For a split second, I have to tell you, for a split second, I thought that Lee was going off book. I thought that he was breaking with the plan, and Rosemary was saying, Lee, what are you doing? This wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
For a split second, I thought that Lee was going off book. But that's not what happened. That was all planned from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And how Lee bets his sawmill. And
I was about to say the same thing. Mic drop. I was
mic drop.
What?
The mic drop is when he puts down the 4 7s.
Yes, that
too. And I love how he plays it up. He goes back and lets out this long exhale, and I knew you would.
I love how Lee said something along the lines of, actually, I wasn't bluffing.
And Lee now owns the railroad land, and he is going to be the one that talks to Mr. Harriman about putting the spur line straight to the sawmill, and we can have a prosperous town, because with Lee owning the land, you know that it will be put to good use.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Rosemary, who doesn't quite know how to put substitute teaching skills to good use.
Okay, can we just talk about the scene when she walks in the schoolhouse? You know, all the kids are just like throwing stuff, and she's just like casually walking in there, ignoring all the
paper
chaos.
Airplanes. And oh my gosh. And I love how she uses the theater vernacular and then has to translate. Places, please.
Yeah.
Take your seat. You can all take 10. Recess.
Yeah.
Her rewrite of the Founders Day play was not the best at all.
Let's see, who was it? I can't.
Albert.
I can't remember Albert's line, but what he said was really funny.
He said, can we change the lines?
Yes.
And then Emily pipes in and says, we don't think the mayor of our town would talk about entertaining people, and she just has that plastered smile.
Yeah.
Children. We're getting the actor's speech.
Yeah. I love Emily's line too. I think at the end of the scene when she's like, I like my lines just the way they are.
I like my lines just the way they are. Good. Okay, but really quick, let's talk about the scene where Rosemary had no script and she was fumbling for one of the first times that we've seen her. Even when she was telling Jack that she was giving up and she was graciously stepping aside to let him and Elizabeth be together, she was composed. She was posture held high. Everything was going the way she wanted it to. But what does Lee give her?
A pin?
A pin of
a 4-leaf clover.
A 4-leaf clover with a real diamond in the center. He says, for Lady Luck, because of all of the help that she gave him. And she can't get over. Remember what she said earlier? Oh, my dear, never commit your heart unless there's jewelry. But now she's so shocked that he's buying her a real diamond, which I think is really interesting. I think that, you know, committing your heart, that implies much more serious steps. So I just think that she's wondering if it's a little too early for diamonds in any form.
Yeah.
Lee doesn't think so, because he says, maybe I could get you something nicer.
Yeah. That was a really sweet scene, though. I loved how he got her that pin.
It was a very, very sweet scene. It's just that she doesn't know what to do yet. Now, do you think she's not over Jack completely yet, or do you think that she's just trying really hard to be careful this time? What do you think?
I believe that she's just trying to be careful. There was one line in the scene with Lee when they were in the schoolhouse. I can't remember what it was, but she said something along the lines of matters from the heart can be, or
tricky, I believe, or something.
Yeah, matters from the heart can be difficult or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't write that part down, but yeah, it's a sticky situation, because, you know, she says very sincerely, I'm not playing hard to get. But she's not quite ready to be swept off her feet again yet.
Yeah.
So, and then we see Lee look over at Molly.
Yes.
Walks over there, and that's all we see. So, really quick, before we wrap up, I just want to mention Frank and Abigail.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
Yeah, this is the first time that we see them getting closer, having real conversations, not just polite or counseling.
Yeah.
We see them having real conversations, and he manages to get an invitation to dinner by giving.
I love their conversation about the trout.
So funny. But then we get a very real conversation after dinner when we find out that this is Frank's first congregation, and he doesn't look young enough to have it be his first congregation. And she said, one day you woke up and you decided that you would be a man of the cloth. And he says, one day I almost died. And that descends like a boom. And, you know, he's right. That has a way of changing your perspective. Yeah. But we don't know why that happened. That will be next time.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was fun.
It was. Thank you, Hearties. We appreciate you coming back. And we will see you next time for episodes 9 and 10, the season 2 finale. Bye.
Bye, y'all.